A very good evening to you, and thank you so much for sticking to Y254 TV. My name is Cheryl Blessing, and you are tuned in to the Power Talk Show. Now, on this platform, we have engaging conversations on things that directly impact us and things that we have control over. Today, I want us to talk about something that I feel like we've been touching on very lightly, but we haven't delved deeper into it. I want us to focus on self-care, particularly for women who hold leadership positions and women in power, because we've been talking about mental health and prioritizing all that. We've even tried to understand what leadership is and how women can take on more of these roles and how they can expand and get deeper and more recognized in these positions. But now I want us to focus on the aspect of self-care, because women hold multiple roles, and because of the conditions that we are living in, because of the society that we live in, sometimes the challenges that we face as women are very different than what our counterparts, the male, experience. So I want us to really get into how we can promote self-care for women in leadership roles. And I'm joined here by two amazing, powerful leaders who are also women. And I just want us to get into it with them. Firstly, we have Belinda Odhiambo, who is not a guest here. It's not the first time you've been here, but it's been a while. Welcome back again. How are you feeling?
I thank God.
Yeah.
After going through a rough time, but by God's grace, I am here because of the support of the self-care coach, who has really walked with me through this journey. And I'm glad to be here. Indeed, it's been a while.
It's been a while, and
Yes.
welcome back again.
Yes.
And the self-care coach in the person we're talking about is Susanna Kataka. Karibu sana. How are you
Asante
feeling?
sana. I'm good. I just got into the country a few years ago, so I'm still adjusting to jet lag that we were talking before. But I'm happy to be here.
It's
I'm
such a
happy to be here.
pleasure.
Thank you. Thank
The
you.
one thing I've noticed, I talked to my guests before, they're sporting beautiful shirts. And I'm wondering, where's mine?
Oh,
Guys.
that's true. You know what we did is we just had, we were sampling different designs of it. So my sister is the one who designed this ones. And we finally
Nice.
locked it in. Then now there's a rush of get them printed and get things out. So yeah, no, you'll get your t-shirt. Trust me.
Please,
You'll
please.
get your t-shirt. And then some, yes, ma'am.
And to just kickstart this conversation, I want us to get into it, but also I want to hear from you as well. You can do that by going to our platforms at Y254. Let me know through a comment, an opinion, give me an experience. I want to find out from you what you think is the biggest challenge that Kenyan women in leadership face today. What do you think is the biggest challenge that the Kenyan women face, particularly with focus on leadership, because we have a lot of challenges that we've been facing as women. But what do you think the women leaders are fighting today? What's the biggest challenge that they have? Go on our platforms right now at Y254 and let me know. We will sample your comments as we progress with the conversation. But just to kickstart the whole conversation, I've come across so many people who, when we talk about leadership, they think about political positions or this major positions, like you're a CEO, you're an MD, but there's so many leaders across all boards. Even at home, you can be a leader in your own house, in your family. So I want us to break down what leadership means to each of us. Belinda, what does leadership mean to you?
Leadership is taking up responsibility to empower others. You cannot mention leadership and miss out on responsibility, because you have to be responsible to empower other people, not just yourself, but empowering other people. That's why we have a difference between a boss and a leader. A boss will manage people, or a manager manages people, but a leader empowers other people.
I love that. Yeah. I love especially the angle of empowerment, because the people who can be the head, but there's no empowerment. It's just, sometimes it's even dictatorial with the commands and the rules and all that. But for you to empower people, then you're leading them, you're guiding them. And men have been known to hold leadership positions. Traditionally, we assume men are the most likely to be leaders. Susanna, why do you think women need to take up leadership roles? Why do you think it's important for women to take up this roles?
I think because it's been a very patriarchal society for so long that we're having to fight and navigate our way into a space that we've not owned for very long time, if at all.
Yeah.
So now that's where the push comes in. That's how come things like feminism have come in, and people are very edgy about words like that. But that's where the push is coming from. I think when it comes to leadership, it starts from a very young age, just like we're talking about during the break.
Yeah.
You have to start from like when their parents are raising their kids, how we raise the girl versus how we raise the boy. For me, I grew up in a household of, typical nuclear family. And my parents were always, everything was equal. I mean, even the boys knew how to wash dishes and cook for themselves.
Yeah.
So there was never that power change. So now all the kids in our family all grew up in a leadership role. So I'm a strong believer in the family role of how you're raising the kids. And that's what's going to trigger leadership, especially in the girls. And that's where we're really pushed to be leaders. There's two of us, and both of us have really worked hard to get to where we are. But it started in the home.
I really, really love that because that forms the foundation of
Very
everything.
much so, yeah.
And just to give context, you're based in America.
Yes.
Are you born and bred in America?
No. No, I was raised in Kenya until I was about, I want to say about 20. I turned 21 in December when I went to the US. So I left Kenya to go to school. I was one of those very reluctant people to leave. My dad had to literally like, here are your stuff and go find opportunity. I'm like, no. So I left when I was 20, got there, went to school, bachelor's, master's, got married, one kid, and then at that point you're like, okay, now I have to stay. This is the child, so this is what it's going to be like. So I'm a daughter of both worlds. I talk about that all the time. So I'm half and half.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I just asked that because the experience of the African household is particularly the women take on the roles of cleaning, cooking, maintaining the home, and then the men are the ones who do the masculine things. Go cut firewood, go do this, go play outside. And then they come home in the evening, they sit on the desk, on the table, with the newspaper or the remote control. So traditionally, that's what has been the norm, particularly in African households. The women belong in the kitchen, or they've been conditioned to think they belong in the kitchen. And the men sit down when they're having the meetings. The men sit there. The women are barely ever present. So, Belinda, I'm wondering, did you experience that kind of lifestyle, or did you have a similar experience to Susanna, where in your household, in your home, you were both encouraged, your brothers and your sisters, you were brought up the same. You were taught that all of you need to know how to cook, all of you need to know how to clean, all of you need to speak up and voice your opinions?
My experience has been totally different because children model by looking at what their parents do. That is what children turn out to be. So my dad used to wake up very early in the morning because he's a retired teacher right now. He was a deputy principal. He's the one who used to cook for us tea. Yes, so I grew up knowing that men cook tea in the morning. So the leadership roles were instilled in me even as a firstborn. I'll share my story with you. I think I've shared it with you. That my mom gave birth to me while she was still very young. So hapo kidogo, she went back to school. Then my dad had to take care of me. So my dad is the one who taught me how to cook ugali. So this changed my mindset. So I grew up knowing that I need to be a leader. I'm the one to take care of my siblings. I'm the one even to take care of my brothers and teach them how to cook, wash dishes, and even do the cleaning of the house. So it was a balanced family. I didn't see a scenario whereby we were secluded simply because we are girls. In fact, my mom was tough on us because we were girls. The more the reason we had to go to school, we had to perform well, we had to do everything out of the extraordinary. Yes.
And that's very, very amazing, because having been brought up with the confidence to know that you're equal to a man, you can pursue the same opportunities, you are deserving of the same, it empowers a woman. And we've had the movement since, I believe, the early 2000s, particularly in Kenya, of the girl child empowerment and the girl child this, the girl child that. But it's come with a lot of controversy, particularly recently, because the boy child feels like, oh, we've been neglected. What are we supposed to do? And there's also the aspect where there's lack of role models for the boy child. So there is a miss in even the gender roles, the expectations, and some of the things that we normally would, like, you know, if you're a feminist, you'd expect everyone to cheer at the idea of feminism because it's about empowering the girl child.
Right.
Yeah, but then you go on social media, there's so many people who are like, oh my God, we hate the feminists are ruining
So
society.
demonized. Yes.
Yeah.
And that's not what it is. Yeah.
It's a complete different reaction than what we'd expect.
Yeah.
But there's also perhaps the lack of education where we have empowered the girl child, but we haven't made the boy child understand why we are empowering the girl child.
Yes.
So what do you think, Susanna? What do you think can be done about that? Because now we're in this era where the generations are mixed up. It's just a war between the genders.
Yeah.
And we only come together, I think recently, that's when everyone has been coming together against the common enemy.
Yes.
But other than that, it's always the feminists versus the guys who are toxic with the masculinity. How do you think we can bridge that gap in this new generation to make them understand why the girl child needs to be empowered?
I think apart from the family of the role of the family in doing so, I think it's also in the educating. I was at a gender-based violence forum recently, and somebody mentioned this, and I thought it was really interesting. You know, when you're raising your kids, you balance things out just like we talked about, but after a while you just don't stop there. Then it's the role of people who have now come from that raising, like us, to now bring it forward in schools, high schools, and colleges, and make sure it's a continuum of education. So in high school, for example, you make it clear that, you know, the girls do this, the boys do this, but in the end, it's for the whole society.
Yeah.
At the same time, we're not trying to create a competition because of what we've seen being raised. We all learn the same thing. This is what leadership is. This is what did she mention? Emotional intelligence. Okay, learning how to control your emotions and things like gender-based violence. So we have to put those things into the curriculum in high school, in college, for both genders, not separate the two, because the guys are going to be used to seeing leaders, male leaders, all the time. We don't have to teach them how to lead because they have all these role models. Now the girls are the ones that we have to bridge the gap. But when we're trying to bridge that gap, still present the same curriculum, so you're all learning the same thing.
Yeah.
If you separate the two, then you represent that gap again.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, I want to add to what Susanna has just said, that, you know, men automatically take their leadership roles. You do not have to remind them that they are a leader. Even in the family setup, you'll find that a man knows when to be a man. You get it.
Yeah.
But women have to constantly they have to be empowered and to be reminded that, you know, you need to step up. You need to have confidence. Most men have confidence. And a very good example is also whereby when you ask a man to tell you how he charges or how he costs his services, he will be forthright and tell you that this is how it goes and this is what I charge.
Yeah.
Even per hour, a very good example is someone who is a consultant. Men don't shy away from telling you that they do per hour, but women, they'll still debate whether they'll be accepted, they will negotiate, they'll be like laid back, they're still figuring out whether they'll be rejected or not. So men take up their responsibilities or leadership responsibilities very naturally. But women, because of our culture, sometimes we try to draw back. So women need really to be given that push. Because if you do not have that push, if you do not have a mentor, you don't have a role model, then you have no reference.
And you know, when they talk about the push too, that's where the gap, it becomes now competitive. Because now the boy child or the guys start to feel like the girls are being given so much more of a push. Then if they didn't understand what it means that the girls have always been here, and that's why we're trying to get them here to where you are, we're not just pushing them above you. They've always been here. So that's why a lot of funding goes towards the girl child and all that kind of stuff. But if we don't educate the boy child as to why we're doing this, then they sit there thinking,
it's a competition.
It's a competition. So now the jealousy, the anger, all those things start to rise from that because we are failing to not match them, but to let the boys understand that we girls have been here. So we're just trying to get them here. Then we can all now compete at the same level.
That's true.
For the opportunities.
And that's the reality because it's been focused on the girl child empowerment, all the lessons on the girl child, but the boy child have not been made to understand why we're empowering the girl child. Even the term feminism, it's not even taught in school. You barely come across it through primary school, high school. It's just something that you hear about. I came across it as a woman in my university. That's when I dived deeper into it. And I made the choice of even researching into this particular topic, understanding the history, why feminism came about, the different eras and the waves. But it's not something that is naturally taught. Another thing is with the boy child, they have this, traditionally they have the circumcision. In Africa, it's taken seriously, where you're taken away for about a week or a few days and you're taught some lessons, how it is to be a man, what you need to do, all that. Unfortunately, on the counter side, we've been having FGM for the women. That is not constructive. There's no lesson on what you need to do. It's just you're being cut and you're being told you need to submit to a man. We are doing this because of the pleasure of your husband. It's never about, as a woman, this is how you need to do. This is what you need to learn. I think I've come across it in the coastal culture where they have that, the girl child are taught and they're empowered at a very early age and taught about what you need to do as a woman, how you need to be. But most societies, most cultures do not have that. Do you think that's part of the reason why, as Belinda, you were saying, the boy child are more bold about speaking up and saying this is exactly what I want, and the girl child are more meek because we've not, there's no teaching, there's no initiation,
there's no program, there's not anything outside of FGM that's distractive. There's nothing there.
There's nothing else to show you now you're a girl, but you're transitioning into a woman and you need to understand what that means. What do you think we can do about that? Because there's clearly that gap in our culture, and how can we bridge that?
Yes, we need clubs, because I've experienced a club for girls that teaches girls to transition into womanhood. It is called the Princess Crossover Club. So as they cross over, what do they expect? How will they manage their emotions? How will they deal with their crushes? How will they even, you know, manage the expectations from the society? So I believe that the gap in the knowledge of how to transition from girlhood to womanhood really needs to be filled, and it needs to be done as soon as yesterday, because if we continue delaying, or we continue like this, then more women will not feel empowered, and women will still, you know, be meek, as you had put it. Like right now, a very good example is we have the positions that were announced or advertised a few weeks ago for the PS. You will find that most of those appointments will be from the, I don't want to say the other gender, but the men. And so many women will not be given those appointments. It is because most men will apply. Yes, because for you to be appointed, you must apply. So we lack self-confidence enough to apply, and then we disqualify ourselves before even we are disqualified.
Imposter syndrome.
Yes. So that imposter syndrome makes us to lean back or to draw back from the opportunities that would have put us in front.
I love that, because for real, we don't have the confidence unless you intentionally want to learn. You intentionally put yourself in spaces where women are empowered and they really push you to go above and beyond. It's hard for a woman just by herself to decide, okay, I'm going to do this by myself and I don't care about the outcome. I'm just putting myself out there. Partly we also have the generational gap. We have the space between this generation that was very, very about the women being in the kitchen and the men being the leaders. And now we have the generation where everyone can speak up and say whatever, regardless of age, regardless of you know, position, as long as you're respectful about it. So also, how can we fill that gap? Because we are working together in a society where all these generations have come together. And this year, I think that's when we've been having the conversations of the Gen Z versus millennials versus Gen X versus boomers. And there's that conflict still in opinion, in experience, that also adds to the challenges that we're facing. So I want us to take a short break and then come back and address that. And also genuinely get into the self-care. What can we do to ensure that we're taking care of ourselves, that we're empowering ourselves, and we are constantly keeping ourselves in check. So let's take a very short break. But before we do that, I want you to go to our social media platforms and let me know, what do you think are some of the biggest challenges that the women leaders in Kenya are facing? That's one thing I want to hear from you. So go on our platforms at Y254. what do you think is the biggest challenge that women in leadership positions are facing today in Kenya? Let me know that, and we will sample your comments as we come back. So let's take a very short break, but stay tuned to Y254.